Welcome to Dollars and Cents, Creating Your Fulfilled Life with Nicole Romito from Private Vista. In this podcast, we draw from years of experience as well as guest specialists to help you create the life you imagine. Join us in this journey as we enlighten and empower you to align your lifestyle to help you achieve your goals with a clear picture of your future. Now, let's get to the show.
And welcome to the Dollars and Cents Podcast with your host, Nicole Romito. Nicole, good to see you.
Good to be seen. How are you today, Bill?
I'm great. And I can say with great confidence, in no shade intended, I'm much better than you because you have been moving. And that is everybody's worst nightmare.
Yes. And you know me, when I do something, I go all in. So I moved 3 places at once. So it's been a fun couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicole is a party kind of gal, boys and girls. Oh, so what do we got on the plate today? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So I'm excited. Bill, with our podcast today, we're going to talk about how to prepare for the adventure of college. And I have to say, I applied for college well over 30 years ago. And wow, has the process changed. And because of that, I've invited Mary O'Malley, who is the co-founder of Union Hall Admissions Advising, to join me today so she can share some of her experience and wisdom on how to help parents and kids navigate the gauntlet of figuring out which school is the right fit, how to best prepare for both their college and post-college career, and then kind of circle back to how to navigate the application process. So we're going to pack a lot into today's episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this because the college admission process is not well understood and is extraordinarily complicated when you suddenly start jumping into it. So I look forward to hearing what Mary has to say.
Perfect. Well, first of all, I do want to welcome Mary in. Thanks, Mary, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And so before we jump into what I know is going to be a packed full of much needed information conversation, I'm just going to give a brief bio for our listeners. So as I mentioned, in studio with me today, I have Mary O'Malley. She is the co-founder of Union Hall Admissions Advising. And from a young age, Mary has always wondered what's next. So it's not surprising that today she's helping students figure out their answers to that same question. Union Hall Admissions Advising is an educational consulting firm that helps students navigate their high school years. When working with families, Mary takes a straightforward yet compassionate approach to help students navigate past the smoke and mirrors of the application process. She graduated from Knox College and also received a master's from Northwestern University while working full-time as the assistant director of college counseling at the Latin School of Chicago. Mary lives in Western Springs with her 6-year-old pit bull mix, and I love this name, Ruby Bader Ginsburg. That's so fabulous, Mary.
Thank you. Yeah, she's a gem.
I bet. I would love to see a picture of her if you get a chance, because that name is
definitely
fantastic.
can.
Thank you. We all love our fur babies, don't we?
Yes.
All right. Well, now that, I would say let's kind of jump in to what we are going to talk about today. And before we do, I was reading some of your Substack articles, and one of the lines that jumped out from one of your articles, and I thought it'd just be kind of good to lay this out here, is because college admissions isn't just about where you go, it's about who you become getting there. Mm-hmm. And I just love that because I have found, I know in prepping for the call, Mary, we talked about how neither of us have children, but certainly know a lot of people who do and both work with people who do. And it's really easy just to become so caught up in the process and checking the boxes and the name of the school and things like that. And I think oftentimes it's easy for both kind of the parents and the kid to lose sight of, hey, who am I? Who am I trying to be? And kind of how do you hold on to yourself throughout what is a very grueling process? So I just want to kind of lay that out there because that really resonated with me about keeping it about the kid as a person. I thought we could kind of start off with, because as I mentioned, I know actually for both of us, it's been a while since we've had to go through this personally. How about we start off with, how are you seeing the higher education landscape change? What are maybe some new challenges, some trends, things like that? And then we could kind of get into your process, how's your process work? How do you connect that with the child or their family? And then, of course, I know myself and our listeners always love hearing about some success stories.
Sure. I think the best place to start for listeners is to realize that colleges are businesses during the admission process. They will, they educate you after you pay your tuition. But throughout the admission process, they're acting out on their institutional priorities, and they're acting to make decisions that are in their best interest. So if they need, 5 redheaded tuba players from Ohio, that's their goal. And they have to make that somehow work. And I feel like oftentimes you can do the right thing, you can get the test scores, you can have the rigor, you can be the class president. Doesn't always mean that that is what a college is looking for. And I think kind of resetting that in a way to make parents understand that you just never know what's going to happen. So I think trying to make a resume for your child that makes them happy and authentic is better than trying to seek out what you think a college may want.
Oh, I like that. Can you tell me a little more, maybe give an example of where you've seen kind of a disconnect or how you helped the family kind of navigate towards that?
Sure. I see it all the time. Parents come to me and they say, our child has done X, Y, and Z, and we want them to go to medical school at Harvard. And that's great. That can people certainly do it. But I think what people overlook in this process is high school is a time for kids to start to become who they are and to follow their interests and to really work to find out what they like. And if they're forced down roads just for things on the college resume, oftentimes they're not going to have anything authentic to write about when they get to the application process.
Okay. So do you want to start with your process then and maybe then wrap?
Sure.
We can kind of close with some of the trends you're seeing?
I think it's interesting. I was walking my dog the other day, and a neighbor who knows what I do came up and, started chatting, and she went to school in New Hampshire and has little kids. And she was asking me about the schools in the neighborhood. And I'm kind of thinking like, it's real. Those kids are real little. And what she was getting at is, how can I start to prepare my children for that school in New Hampshire? And it just kind of struck me that we're approaching this process incorrectly, in my opinion.
Okay.
Kids need to think about what they want when they get to college. You can certainly search for, on any of the big search sites, throw in your ACT score, throw in your intended major, say you want to go anywhere in the country, and you get the same schools pretty much regardless of what you put in there. I think that when kids start to think about how they learn and what's important to them, who they want to be surrounded by, kind of more so like those kumbaya questions someone once told me, it gets to a different level of searching. And when your values align with the institution's values, it's just a much better fit. So I really work with families to try and get students to ask those reflective questions. And that's hard, to get them thinking about, oh, well, I really liked my biology class because it was so hands-on. And, chemistry really wasn't that. And that's a very bad example, but you get the idea.
Right.
And, what does it mean to go to a school where I'll be one of 500 in an intro class?
Right.
It doesn't seem to be that that's how people are thinking of these things. And I think that that's important because you want a child when they get to college to, feet on the ground, start running, rather than, being nervous about if they've made the right decision if they're in the right location. So I really work with families to try and set kids up to have those doors open, come decision-making time.
Okay.
And that's starting earlier and earlier, sadly.
And when you say that, where kind of are you seeing people reaching out to you then, if it's earlier and earlier?
Seen a lot of 8th grade families reaching out in the last calendar year, trying to get a sense of what the high school options are going to be and where can my child have the most success. And I think that while I'd love for them to be kids a little bit longer, it's a good thing that, parents are seeking fit in the high school.
Yeah, like I said, it's just so different from when I went through it. And to some degree, I do feel bad for the kids because I just think there's so much pressure on them and at an earlier and earlier age. Mm-hmm. So you will help them figure out best fit high school. And then I'm guessing the parents probably have the end game of if we can get them into the high school, this high school seems to source to, the Ivies or, however you want to define the top colleges. One of the things you mentioned, I know, is before you're even getting to actually filling out the college applications, walk us through a little bit. Like you gave an example, if the child already knows hey, I want to do something in the business world. What are some of the things you might advise, or how would the parents work with, you help them get into the high school. How should they shape or formulate their high school career to set them up then for the business career?
It's really important to know that when a college is reading an application, they are looking at where did you start and where did you finish. So the example is always, or one of the good examples is always math. If I start high school in pre-algebra, I can grow to go into algebra 1 and then geometry and algebra 2. I won't get to
you're bringing
calculus.
back bad memories. Sorry.
For me as well. But it's not about taking everything the high school offers.
Okay.
It's about what can you do and how can you increase your challenge each year. So in that very bad math example, the student won't grow to calculus, and that's okay. They're taking, a little bit more challenge every year. So if, there's a high school in the North Shore, and I think one of these years they're going to come out with AP lunch, and everyone will try and take AP lunch. But if it's not offered at your high school, you don't need to be worried about it. So I do start, a lot of families thinking about what the curriculum is going to be, the high school. How far will they grow? If they want business, they need calculus. There's just no way around it. So how can we plot a course to get you to calculus? I also work a lot to try and figure out, and I forget who told me this, but I use it all the time. Like, how are you going to make a big place smaller? Who are your adults going to be in the building? What are you going to join so that, you're having a bad day, you have people to turn to? And so that's important, starting freshman year, thinking about what you're going to do. And that, will change, obviously,
right,
as you grow and you develop interests, but getting involved right away. So a lot of times when I start with families, it's like, okay, let's talk about curriculum and what those choices are, but also how are they going to find their people in the building? And I feel like if you can send your kid off freshman year having a good idea about, at least initially, about some of those, you're setting them up for success.
Yeah, I love that. It's more so than just figuring out what are going to be my classes, but who's going to be my support and my network, right?
Yes.
Because it's a big change and a lot. I mean, I went to school out of state, first time away from my parents. It was a 9-hour drive. And I feel that more and more kids seem to be going out of state or farther away from their kind of core nucleus family. Mm-hmm. So that alone is jarring enough and scary. So I love that you're kind of looking at them again as a whole person. That I want to kind of keep highlighting that for our listeners, because I really think that's a big piece and a piece of why you and your company is so successful is because you're looking at them as a whole person, not just, again, the numbers on the page, if you will.
Correct. And to me, there might be some numbers on the page that aren't great, like they don't define you. And, testing is a great example of that. Students get so wrapped up in the standardized testing piece of this process, but at no point is that the only thing that the college is evaluating you on. It's one piece of this bigger puzzle. And as standardized testing comes back into the equation after COVID, when most colleges in the country went optional, I think that you're going to see a lot more people coming in and saying, outside sources saying that this number is going to matter. This is going to be the only thing that matters. And I think that I know a lot of companies who do work I do, and, kind of affiliates are playing on people's anxieties and scariness. It is a process that not a lot of people understand what comes next. And I think working with someone who, if you have, the ability to work with someone who has your family's goals in mind at the end of the day is very important.
Yeah, I agree. So that is interesting. So the test scores are already kind of back in, favor and are being like heavily considered as part of the application?
They are at certain places. And there are always schools, MIT is one. Purdue went back to testing years ago.
Okay.
And I think that those are institutions that are kind of telling you up front what their values are. And a lot of schools have remained optional, but I feel strongly that there's a misconception that if you go test optional, someone's going to assume that you tanked a standardized test. And that's just not true. In my opinion, it gives you more leeway to look at a student very holistically and see what they might contribute to the campus. Okay,
I like that. So how, kind of when you say contribute to the campus, let's tell me a little bit more about that. Are you or the parents talking with people on the admissions team or like counseling side from the college perspective to figure that out? How do you kind of help the parents and the child figure out, I think everyone can contribute something, but it's like, how does that tie into the values of the college?
One of my mentors years ago said in a presentation, and I'll credit this to Pete Campbell at Lallimere School, if you can start to explain in an application how you're going to add to the academic community, how you're going to add to the campus community, and if you're nice, you're going to be just fine. And I think trying to hit those pillars with my students is very important to me. They need to be able to understand what academic goals, how are they going to match with whatever is offered at the school. They need to look into the curriculum. Is it a core curriculum? Is it, more of a Brown and Wesleyan, no core curriculum? Very different places, schools. The only thing true about all colleges is that nothing is true about all colleges. So looking into, what does it really mean to be a student here is important. And that, going back to what happens when you get there, a lot of, are you going to be in lecture classes? Are you going to be in more like a Harkness? Those things are important to know what you're good at and what you like. The campus piece is interesting to me because I feel like not all kids should know what they want to do when they're 17.
Agreed. I didn't know.
So. I had no idea.
Right.
Some days I still don't feel like I know, but there are lots of places where you're just locked in, and that's great. There are some kids out there. I worked with one this year, and he's going to be a rocket scientist. And I probably could have guessed that when he was 5.
Oh, geez.
He's just like, that is his whole being.
Wow.
But he's probably not 100% the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so having kids, especially from an early point in high school, just see what's out there, explore, is really important to me. I think it makes for better, not just better applicants, but better humans.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, because it does evolve, what you think you're interested in or what you want to do and what you feel comfortable, right?
Yeah, it absolutely should.
Do you work with, we didn't talk about this in our prep call, so, feel free to answer or not. But what are your thoughts, kind of building on the point, like you said, that neither of us at 17, 18 knew what we wanted to do. And even kind of once you get into college, I feel like maybe until you get into some of those classes related to your major, you're like, this is or isn't for me. What are your thoughts about, taking like the basic or fundamental classes at, maybe a like community college or something like that. And then until you do figure out, you say, oh, okay, I want to be a veterinarian, or I do want to go into business, or I do want to be a teacher. I don't know if you have any thoughts, like if that's in your realm of experience. So I don't want to put you on the spot.
It is in my realm of experience. And I think that it's knowing a student is going to be what helps, someone like me make that recommendation.
Okay.
I think
I agree. There's no one answer for all. I 100% agree with that.
I lean into that a little bit, probably more than I should, but I think community colleges are a wonderful, wonderful experience. But you have to have the right student who's able to navigate it, because you are a little bit, more on your own. If you're commuting to a campus, things like that. So I don't know if I'm necessarily the right person, but I really value the work that community colleges do.
Okay. All right. I know you talked a little bit about, I feel like from our processes, we're very aligned that generally speaking, the sooner you start, the better off you are. Now, I know you're not saying
and I'm cringing a little bit when you say that, but yeah, the more you can plan,
right,
the more you can plan, the better you're going to be. And I think it's the way I explain it to families is like, I'd rather you wade into the pool of college admissions than like feel like you have to cannonball and you're suddenly underwater.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true. Because I mean, with anything, especially for the parents, if it's their the oldest child, it's the first time they're going through it in today's environment. So
100%.
Yeah, it's the same thing like with our financial planning process. It can very much be like drinking from a fire hose. And that's why I was saying, I agree, you don't want to start too soon, but the more time you give yourself, then you have time to kind of process, let yourself sit with some of the recommendations or just even understanding the lay of the land versus, like, to use your analogy, having to cannonball off the high dive.
This process can be fun. Should it be a little stress and a little anxiety? Absolutely, because that's life. But I feel like families are, in that heart attack range of an EKG for far too long. There are 4,500 colleges in this country, probably more. And I read a stat, it's like 75% of them accept 75% of their applicants. This is, we keep talking about no one getting into college, or every year around May 1, you'll hear a news story like this kid applied to all the Ivies in Stanford and UChicago was their backup and they got in nowhere. And right, that's a little nuts on a number of levels. But then you hear the story about the kid that got into all 237 schools that they applied to, and that's also a little bit nuts too. If you build lists and look at the college search from a place of, I know who I am, I know what my kid wants, you're going to have a lot more success and realize how crazy both of those examples are.
Right. Well, there's always extremes, or like the two, to throw in the finance aspect, right? The two tails of the bell curve, correct, right? Those exist and they're real, but there's a bell curve for a reason. And the majority 100%. Fall in, a much more kind of more expected or reasonable range.
But those aren't the stories that are told. Those,
of course, because those are the headlines. That's what people click on, right? It's
exactly. And I'm hoping, I can get more parents to realize that the middle ground is kind of where you're going to have the most success.
Right. Exactly.
Going through this with a, sound head on your shoulders is good.
Yeah. And do you want to maybe share with our listeners a little bit more about how your process helps the families get to that middle ground and to the right place for their child?
I think it really is a lot about trying to figure out what they want when they get to college and asking those types of questions. A 17-year-old probably doesn't understand that.
Right.
You're looking for the schools that our kids wear sweatshirts to, or, what schools play football on Saturday afternoons on, NBC. And if that's your whole search, I'm not the person for you. I can definitely recommend you out, but I work with families who are really hopeful that their student can find a place where they're not only going to find academic success, but also kind of that, growth that will launch them into adulthood.
Yeah, into a successful adulthood.
Right. I spend a lot of time building the relationship, and starting earlier is good. Because by the time you get to essay writing, you're going to want someone to tell your child this isn't, we need to go in a different direction. And if you have a relationship with them, it's 100 times more easier.
Yeah,
easier.
absolutely.
That's not the right phrase, but yeah.
Well, right. Yeah. Because they've got trust and they know you and they know you know them. So absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to work with, I get the privilege to work with a lot of young people, but that is, I think, the hardest part when, they're reading something and they think they have to present themselves one way. And oftentimes that comes out in essays, and more so this year than others. I'm like, you are not a 43-year-old woman writing this, right? Like, you need to sound authentic. You need to write in your voice. You would never use these words. And I think that that's going to help them stand out, that they just authentically know who they are.
I love that. I love that. What are some other maybe tips or strategies have you successly implemented with some of your clients?
I get them researching early. Post-COVID, yield. So how many admitted students choose to enroll became the definition of a good year. So schools with early decision, which is a binding enrollment agreement, if you get in, you're going, will fill about 60% of their class through that. So by December 31st, 60% of their class and their tuition dollars are locked in for the next year. What that means then is schools want to, compete for a high yield number. And that comes back to something called demonstrating interest. So the more you can engage with a college, the better. The emails you open, the webinars you attend, do you do campus visits? Do you meet with them when they're at your high school? Those are all data points that get looked at when you apply.
Okay.
They say they don't, but they do. They're businesses.
No, that's true. Because you're right. I know we review, right? Like how our newsletters or things like that, the clicks, and it's data you can evaluate. Yeah. And then it's all about engagement.
Exactly.
I love that. All right. Any other tips or anything you want to highlight for our listeners to make sure that they walk away with, if you will, even if it's just something to consider and we can't fully delve into it?
I feel like I could give that answer probably on a, monologue for about the next week or so. But I think that when you're making this financial decision that is very expensive,
yes,
you want to do the work early to make sure that it is in fact the right fit for your child. And there's, a lot of ways to go about that. But if you're looking at what's going to make your students successful, starting earlier gives you a lot more time to plan for that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. And this was, I think this will be very helpful to our listeners. And I know for me and my colleagues at Private Vista, as we have, clients who are getting their kids at this point of the life cycle, this will be a useful resource for us to share with them. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
And before we wrap up, I ask all my guests a question. If you could live anywhere in the world, no financial constraints, no time constraints, you don't have to worry about quarantine for the doggy, where would you live and why?
On the beach in Nantucket.
Oh,
easy.
Wow. That's
there's
amazing.
something about that sea air. It just makes me happy.
Perfect. Thank you.
That was a nice, quick answer. She knows where she wants to be.
I know the goals. I was like,
wow. Love it.
Hey, you know what I appreciated most about listening to this? Because now, in full disclosure, I have 2 kids who went to college and who all graduated, and they're all grown-up people, being grown-up adult people most of the time. The emphasis on kids, because the thing that I saw most often when my kids were looking at schools was I look around at other parents, and they are obsessed with fulfilling that kind of like their fantasy, their expectations. So I really, really deeply appreciated that part of it. And I'm just curious, Mary, do you find yourself in sort of this position where you feel like you need to intervene maybe on behalf of the kid and say to the parents, it's nice you want to go there, but this, you're.
All the time. I had a meeting last night with a family, and it was one of those moments where I was like, this can be redirected so easily. Mm-hmm. The mom she was like, well, he's just been a kid this summer. And I'm like, that's amazing. Yeah. Like, that's absolutely amazing.
Because he is a kid.
He is a kid. He worked at the grocery store as a bagger, and she was like, well, he hung out at the pool a lot. Like, great. Excellent. That's fantastic. And I genuinely mean it. Like, they need to be kids. They need to be kids longer. In order for them to be a kid, you have to have an idea that they're on the right path eventually. Right. And so again, knowing what they're entering into high school curriculum, helping them kind of set them up for clubs and activities, like that's going to, in my eyes, let them be kids a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I do feel like my job is half, cheerleader, half middleman, half, okay, let's actually talk about who your child is.
That's great. That is great. Nicole, thank you for facilitating this conversation. Mary, do we have a way to get a hold of you if people are listening to this podcast? Is there a way for them to reach out?
Absolutely. unionhalladvising.com.
Excellent. And that will be in the show notes, listeners. So if you want to reach out to her, you can check that note out there. Nicole, same question for you. If people are listening to this podcast who aren't subscribers, when they're not familiar with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, either our website, which is myprivatevista.com. On our homepage, there's a contact us button. So you can complete your information, reference this episode, and either myself or one of my wonderful colleagues will certainly reach out. Or you can give us a call at 312-831-4370. And again, you can be connected either with myself or one of our other great advisors. And I will say, because certainly we will kind of go hand in hand with Mary, where she's helping you navigate, having your kid be a kid and the whole person and the right fit and things like that. We can help with the other big question, which is, how am I going to fund all this?
The big question goes to Nicole. How do I pay for this?
Yeah.
The other thing you can do if you're listening and you're not a subscriber is just hit the follow button. The value of doing that is that the next episode, when it's released, you'll be notified, and you can give that one a listen as well. And you can follow along. There's a lot of terrific conversations that Nicole has facilitated over her time doing her podcast. So you might want to listen to a bunch of them, as a matter of fact. The other thing I would ask simply is that if you like the podcast, tell people about it. Let them know. Word of mouth promotion. Very much appreciated. So until next time, thank you for taking the time to listen today. On behalf of Nicole and everybody at My Private Vista, I'm Bill Tucker saying thanks, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Dollars and Cents Creating Your Fulfilled Life with Nicole Romito, sponsored by Private Vista. Visit our website at www.myprivatevista.com or give us a call at 312-831-4370. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Private Vista is a group comprised of investment professionals registered with Hightower Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Advisory services are offered through Hightower Advisors, LLC. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. No investment process is free of risk, and there is no guarantee that the investment process or the investment opportunities referenced herein will be profitable. Past performance is neither indicative nor a guarantee of future results. The investment opportunities referenced herein may not be suitable for all investors. All data or other information referenced herein is from sources believed to be reliable. Any opinions, news, research, analyses, prices, or other data or information contained in this presentation is provided as general market commentary and does not constitute investment advice. Private Vista and Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates make no representations or warranties expressed or implied as to the accuracy or completeness of the information or for statements or errors or omissions, or results obtained from the use of this information. Private Vista and Hightower Advisors, LLC assume no liability for action made or taken in reliance on or relating in any way to this information. The information is provided as of the date referenced. Such data and other information are subject to changes without notice. This was created for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of the authors and do not represent those of Hightower Advisors, LLC, or any of its affiliates.